Good evening out there in social media land. This is Marcus Melnick. I am doing a 7-night challenge, not really a challenge, but at 7 p.m. for until next Tuesday evening from 7 to 7:30. I will be on Facebook Live, just like I am now. This will later be archived for people to look at, both on Facebook and on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. And it's an opportunity for everyone out here to ask any questions you may have on firearms. So I will start by letting everyone know what my background is, why I have gravitated towards firearms, and give you an opportunity at the second half of the broadcast to ask whatever questions you may have on firearms, self-defense, those types of things. I have to give you the caveat that I am not an attorney, and as not an attorney, I cannot give you legal advice. However, I am a court-recognized expert witness, and I guess that will begin my explanation of my background. So I'm a court-recognized expert witness. I've done several security and self-defense cases throughout my career. And my educational background is a bachelor's and a master's degree in criminal justice, as well as the School of Police Staff and Command. That Northwestern School of Police Staff and Command is very similar to the Kellogg Business School. It's the cream of the cream, it's the cream of the crop, and I was able to learn law enforcement administration or public safety administration. I did that when I was working in public safety. I have a 27-year career in both police and fire departments as well as private security. I'm currently a subcontractor for an armored car company. And I've been doing this, I've been working with firearms for 41 years. Now, I'm sure you're looking at me saying, that's not true. How could he be working with firearms for 41 years? Well, I thank you for the compliment about my youthful appearance. That was a joke, and I'm kind of deadpan when I do that. But I started when I was 7. My family history is, part of my family has been in the United States since before the Civil War. Part of my family actually fought in the Civil War. And if you move up to modern times, my great-grandfather was a Secret Service agent during World War I. And he taught my father how to shoot. He passed it down to my father. My father then passed it down to me. So when I was 7 years old, that's when my father started to teach me about firearms. And we would be in the basement with a pellet gun. And very shortly after that, we graduated to going to the shooting range. Grew up in Skokie. A lot of people don't know, a lot of non-gun owners don't know that there was a bowling alley in Lincolnwood called Gabby Hartnett Bowling Alley. And that bowling alley had a shooting range in the basement. And that's where I basically learned how to shoot. I've been doing it ever since. I love doing it. For me, it is a connection with my past. It is a connection with my father, who passed away long, long ago. But every time I go to the range, every time I teach, every time I do a video on this, it reminds me of my youth and my father. A little bit more about my background. I'm a second-generation inventor. I came up with what's called the Tactical Daddy, which I have a trademark on the name. And it's basically a tactical vest that dads can wear and use pockets for diapers and wipes and etc., instead of having to carry around a purse. How did I get started in the firearms business? Well, I loved working with firearms at the police departments. I didn't have a lot of opportunity. One of the police departments I worked at, I was 2 doors down from the range, so I did put in some range time. And it was a lot of fun. I got to shoot a variety of weapons. And in 2013, the Illinois legislature came out with the Concealed Carry Act. And that allowed Illinois residents, after receiving 16 hours of training, shorter if you have a honorable discharge with a DD-214, which is the papers that you get discharged from the military with. If you're discharged honorably, it's only an 8-hour class. And a colleague from another police department asked me if I would be interested in teaching and working for him. I said, absolutely. So I pursued. I already had a lot of the knowledge, not 100%. Nobody knows 100% of the things. If they do, they are a know-it-all, and if they don't, they are an expert. And the difference between an expert and a know-it-all is an expert will say, I don't know, and there's a lot I don't know. My area of expertise is handguns. So in any event, I joined this company. Ultimately, we had to part ways, although I currently am still associated with them. We co-teach several classes together, great group of people. There just wasn't enough business to support multiple employees. So I branched off on my own, created my own business. It's evolved, and it's now called the Firearm Mentor. And my website is firearmmentor.com. Tons of great information, tons of great videos on there, and I encourage you to visit it. A couple other little things that I want to share with you. When I was 19 years old, that's when my father passed away, I took my mom to the shooting range. And my mom was a little old Jewish lady who was a school librarian. And this little old Jewish lady, school librarian, by the way, without the beehive hairdo, this was the early 90s, and some people still had beehive hairdos in schools. I took her to the range, and I set her up with the safety briefing. I went into the next booth, started to load my own firearm, and this is what I heard. Boom, oi! Boom, oi! Boom, oi! I dropped everything. I ran back to my mom. I said, Mom, are you okay? She had a gun in her hand. She turns back to me and says, I'm perfectly fine. And that's what I heard for an hour and a half. Boom, oi! Boom, oi! And because I was 19, I was embarrassed, but today it's a great story. So I have a ton of funny anecdotes and stories that I will share throughout the next several days between 7 and 7:30. This weekend on Saturday morning from 8 to noon, I also have an advanced concealed carry class. So if you are interested in learning how to shoot while moving, engaging multiple targets, and actually drawing your firearm with live ammunition and deploying it against it's a paper bad guy, basically a piece of paper, it's a target, please reach out to me. You can reach me through my website, firearmmentor.com, or you can email me at tacticaldaddy@gmail.com. I kept the Tactical Daddy email. I think it's cute. I think it's great. So now I'm going to open up this Facebook Live to any questions that you guys may have. What questions, and you can post them in the chat. I see several of friends who've joined and watched. I would love to answer any of your questions. And until they come in, I'm just going to keep talking. How do you like that? So, luckily, recently I was able to teach my children how to shoot, and we've had some fun going to the range. I want to take them outdoor shooting because it's just a different dynamic. They do great. They do fabulous with the safety. And as a matter of fact, when we were I was at one of the gun stores with one of my children. Someone was trying to rent a gun. They had no business with a gun. All right, so we do have a question. Sam Rosegarten, is there any chance a bullet can backfire to the face? Yes and no. So a bullet cannot backfire to the face. If it is loaded properly, it will discharge out of the front of the firearm. What you're talking about, though, is a shell casing that gets ejected from a semi-automatic firearm. And this shell casing can go in a lot of places. It can go in between your glasses and your head. It can go in here. It can go down your shirt. Okay, so Sam's talking about the shell. Yes, it can hit you in the face. It can hit you in the forehead. It's hot. It's not comfortable. Not hot enough to send you to the hospital unless you do what someone did about 6-7 years ago at a range in the Chicago area. She was shooting, and the hot shell went down her shirt. And when I teach people, I tell them, if that happens to you, and this is a prop, not a real gun, if that happens to you, first thing you do, put the gun down. Do not do anything but put the gun down. What happened was this woman was shooting, and all of a sudden the shell casing went down her shirt, and she reacted and shot herself accidentally. And that's really an accidental shooting. It's also a little bit of negligence. So it ruined her day. That's an understatement. She did have to go to the hospital and have some surgery. Not life-threatening, but potentially could be. So if you don't like shells flying back in your face, there's other options for you. You can get a revolver. A revolver does not eject shells. A revolver actually has a cylinder that revolves. So hopefully, Sam, that answered your question. I'm going to continue talking about the firearms industry. I did have an opportunity to work for a couple of years at a shooting range. I was kind of the manager, kind of the de facto manager from time to time. I did sales. You are very welcome, Sam. I did sales. I did a ton of training. Some days I was going for 12 hours doing back-to-back 1-hour lessons, and yes, I was tired at the end of the day. You can make mistakes when you do that for that long. So I realized that. I kind of cut back on my training and did more sales, at least from hours 9 to 12. All right, what other questions can I answer? I know you guys have them. And we're going to have different topics every night. Tomorrow night is the law. How to get a firearm, how to get a firearm owner identification card, what you can do, what you can't do with a firearm. What is brandishing? You can't just point a gun at someone because they pissed you off and cut you off in traffic. There has to be articulable reasons of why you are in danger, and that we're going to cover tomorrow night. Some other topics that we're going to cover are going to be maintenance, self-defense law, the changes in the FOID Act, which is known as Fix the FOID Act. There are some changes that do affect gun owners. There are some changes that really don't affect gun owners. They have to do with funding, and we'll touch on that as well. So I'm going to solicit you again for any questions, and I will begin, just continue to talk. When you go to the range, you certainly have to have PPE. And we all know about PPE because of the mask mandates, and that's PPE, and you got to wear a mask everywhere you go now in Illinois. But when you go to the range, you also have to wear hearing protection. And sometimes those are muffs that go over the ear. Sometimes it goes earplug. Sometimes they're electronic. They go in the ear, and you need eye protection. Once in my life, on purpose, I was a kid, I went shooting without hearing protection outdoors, and my ears rang for the rest of the day. Luckily, I did not... What? Just kidding. I did not suffer any hearing loss. When I was a kid, when we went, there was no such thing as shooting glasses. You just went and you shot. Nowadays, a lot of ranges can accommodate a rifle and a pistol. And a rifle, the bullets are a lot bigger, a lot more gunpowder, and a lot more noise. So there are times when I will go to the range, and just by the luck of the draw, I'm right next to a rifle. And it is almost unbearable. So I will have to go out and double up. I'll have to put in earplugs and then ear muffs, and then it's a much better experience for me for just remaining at the range and shooting. No, I've never shot anyone. No, I'm not a hunter. The only thing I hit is the backstop when it goes through the target. So I am completely a target guy. I've done some skeet shooting, which is where they launch up a clay disc and you have to shoot it with a shotgun. I found out quickly I wasn't that good, so I stuck with handguns. I don't do that anymore. And also, as you get older, your bones get weaker, and my shoulder kind of hurts. So shotgun is really tough on your shoulder, on your chest. You typically walk away with a bruise. And I know some shotgun people that are going to see this are, no, we don't have a bruise. Yeah, because you've been doing it for 20 years, and so you're built up. But someone who's not expecting that, it hurts. Rifles are a little different depending on the rifle. AR-15, ooh, bad gun of the day, has an internal spring that absorbs some of the recoil. I am not against AR-15s. I think they're a fantastic firearm, and I speak on from a technical, wow, it's a great design. I've taken them apart, I've put them together. The design is absolutely brilliant for use as a sporting rifle. It's not an assault rifle. So let me address the definition of assault rifle. There's no such thing as an assault rifle. It's a politically charged term. Assault rifle is also a media term. If you hit someone with a baseball bat, is that an assault baseball bat? No, it's a baseball bat. If you hit someone with a golf club, is it an assault golf club? No, you're assigning an adjective to a noun, which you don't do, at least in this case. So I call them defensive rifles because they are used for self-defense. I've never used a firearm for self-defense. I've had some opportunities where I came close, but it never, ever, ever came out. The offender didn't see it. I was able to use verbal skills to de-escalate. And a lot of what I teach is legal self-defense. I should probably coin the term or trademark it. Legal self-defense, I look at as what to say and what not to say to the police. Now, keep in mind, I used to work in law enforcement. I was not a sworn officer. I was support. One of the roles I did was I wrote all the policies and did risk management for one of the police departments. So I did not go out on the street. I did not do anything like that. But I know how operations work, and I know that a lot of police officers are looking to make a name for themselves. And it's very possible that in a self-defense incident, you could have done something not entirely legal. It happens. In the heat of the moment, you may violate some rinky-dink little law. All right. And so I teach what to say, what not to say to the police. We do have a question on a H&K P30L. He's watching too much John Wick. So the H&K Heckler and Koch is, and that's how you say it, not a bad word, that's how it's pronounced. Fantastic firearms. The P30 is a hammer-fired polymer gun. The P30L, which is what Phil is asking about, is a little bit of a longer slide. So when you go as a ranged gun or as a home defense gun, it's fantastic. It would not do well as a concealed carry gun. And that's just because it's just too large to conceal unless you are Braun Strowman or Andre the Giant or really, really large individual. It's difficult to conceal a larger firearm. So I hope I answered that question for you, Phil. It is a great gun. John Wick movies, I have to sit down and watch them in their entirety, but they have some fantastic firearms. When you see guns on TV, a lot of times it's not based in reality. I watch Chicago PD with, you're welcome, Phil, with my children, and a lot of times the actors on Chicago PD will make a firearms mistake. For example, they'll go in the building right outside the door and have their gun pointed up. And up is not a safe direction because what goes up does come down. So the appropriate way to hold a firearm is at the low ready, which means down, pointed down and away from your body and anyone else's body, so it can just come up. These are things that we teach in the class, or the concealed carry class. I would encourage you to ask any questions that you may have. All right. Anyone have any questions? And we'll just continue talking. Firearms community is very, very close-knit. You'll go to the range, and for the vast majority of people there, if you watch someone shoot and you ask them, what kind of gun is that? They'll show it to you. They may even let you shoot it. It's very congenial. Of course, when everyone has a gun, everyone else is polite. But there's a ton of camaraderie in it. I'm part of a group called Illinois Gun Owners Together, or IGOT. We are on Facebook. I would encourage you to join. We have several events throughout the year. Official events. Actually, this Sunday in downstate Illinois, in Hebron, Illinois, there is an IGOT Shoot for Vets where they are raising money and they're going to donate it to veteran causes. I just got a new dog, so I'm thinking veterinarian, but veteran causes. A couple of my friends are going down. I'm actually teaching a class that day, so I will not be able to make it. But we do have Northern Illinois events as well, where we will go to the outdoor shooting range in Ottawa. We haven't done that because of COVID. Some of the highlights there are, last time I was there were about 200 people shooting all along a line into a large pit where you can throw garbage. I brought a deflated basketball. I brought laptop computers, and we just shot them all. So there's a Mad Minute, and if you go to my website or you go to my YouTube page, you can see the Mad Minute. The Mad Minute is when, for 1 minute, all 200 people fire everything they possibly can. It is the loudest noise you'll ever hear, with one exception, and I'll get to that in a minute, and it is a ton of fun. It's a blast. See what I did there? It's a blast. So, we do this twice a year, fall and spring. We come... There's usually a lot of people. People bring grills. You throw $10 in. There's one of the guys in the group is like the best taco cook I've ever met. He makes brisket tacos. He'll grill them there for you. People bring coolers, and it's an all-day event. Also, at that event, there are vendors there that will allow you to rent and shoot a machine gun under their supervision. So I had the opportunity to do that. And there were 30, 35 machine guns I could have shot. Well, I definitely wanted to shoot the Uzi, which I did. And then we talked about Heckler and Koch, or Heckler and Koch. I shot an MP5, which used to be a huge SWAT weapon. It was so much fun. The Uzi was kind of clunky. I don't ever have to do that again. The MP5 was smooth as butter. And then the last time I was there, somebody brought a Civil War cannon, an actual cannon from the Civil War, and you could pay them to fire the cannon. You'd have to look away, pull a string, and that was the loudest noise I've ever heard. And it vibrates throughout your body. It's very much like when you go to a parade and you see the marching band come with the drums, and you feel the shock waves of the drums. Same thing with that Civil War cannon. So the people who were in the Civil War and used them without hearing protection, maybe stuck a little bit of cotton in their ears, probably had a lot of hearing damage. All right, I'm going to solicit for some more questions. And while I do that, I will explain to you that the concealed carry training curriculum is 16 hours long. That includes time at the range, which involves you shooting 30 rounds, 10 rounds at 5 yards, 10 rounds at 7 yards, and 10 rounds at 10 yards. And you have to get a total of 21 out of 30 in the shaded area on the target that's just absolutely enormous. So I've never had anyone physically fail. I've had a couple people that didn't pass because the firearm they were using was not appropriate for them. It didn't fit their hand right. It wasn't for them. Which is another reason why I will go to gun stores with people, a few select gun stores, and help them shop so that they don't get pushed into a firearm that would not be for them. For example, someone may go into a shooting range or gun store shooting range and ask for a Glock, which is just a huge brand name. 60 to 70% of law enforcement agencies across the country shoot Glocks. And then the guy who works there is on the older side and says, I can't sell you a Glock. It doesn't have a safety. I can only sell you a 1911. It won 2 world wars. Well, when you carry a 1911 concealed, that's an all-steel gun, it's going to sound like I'm making a joke, but I'm not. It will pull your pants down. When I first started carrying a firearm, I did carry an all-steel gun. And every 4 seconds, I was pulling up my pants. It didn't help that I don't have the body shape to really do that. I don't have a rear end, so there was nothing to really hold up my pants unless it was a super tight belt. I did switch to a polymer gun. So my pants no longer fall down. You are welcome. Okay, that was supposed to be funny too. I use humor when I teach people because people remember when they're having fun. And if they're having fun, they're going to learn something. So like I was saying earlier, firearms are tools. You don't use a hammer for a job with a screwdriver, and you don't use a screwdriver for a job with a hammer. A lot of times people will come to me and say, I want a really, really small gun. And they ask for a small gun and don't realize that the smaller the gun, the more the recoil. And the reason why is there's not enough mass to absorb the recoil. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and that equal and opposite reaction of the bullet leaving the firearm is actually the firearm jumping back in your hand, like what happened to my mother every time she said, boom, oi, when I took her to the range, if you joined late. That was a story I told early on. So I want you to have the right tool. It's got to fit in your hand the right way. It's got to fit your budget. Caliber has to be usable for you. So if you are a little bit skittish, you would not start off with a 45 ACP, which is a heavy-duty firearms caliber. You would start off, I would start you off with a 22 on the range, and then you can graduate to a 38, a 9mm, and then go on and so forth. I try to start people off so that they are a success. So I was saying, a couple people didn't pass, but nobody ever failed. Because after I worked with them for a few minutes, switched out the firearm, they all scored above the 70%. Actually, most of them scored all in the bullseye. One of the sure ways to fail a firearms test is to be shooting, and I'm going to turn sideways and show you what can happen with a prop. So someone will be shooting, and they'll say, hey, I got a question for you. And all of a sudden, the gun is pointed at you. That's a sure failure. And some of you may giggle a little bit, but that's happened. That's happened to me on more than one occasion. So when I'm in an uncontrolled environment, depending on where it is, I do wear a bulletproof vest. And that is just managing my risk. I'm not afraid. Well, I am a little bit afraid, but we manage our risks. And that's why some people, they want the firearm, but before they use the firearm, they really have to use their verbal skills to de-escalate the situation. The firearm is an absolute last resort, and you have to layer your defenses. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. I used to do, and I can still do, home security surveys. And someone who owns a home who's trying to, be safe and be protected, some people say, oh, let's install cameras. Some people say, let's install an alarm. What's even more basic to that is if you have windows that someone can climb in, plant a thorny bush in front of them. A real thorny bush. Not one of those ones that has soft thorns, but ones that scratch and hurt. That'll deter someone from trying to get into your window. As far as your door goes, you want to have deadbolt locks. When I was younger, I used to say double-sided deadbolt locks, but that's not a thing anymore because it violates code. If you can get them, get them. But then you need a key on the inside as well, and there's a fire issue with that. So you're going to want to install deadbolt locks with 3-inch lag screws. And that's going to start to layer your defenses. Outside, you want to have motion lights. And then, if someone defeats all that and they kick in the door and they're not afraid of your dog that's barking and it's going to bite them, okay, then maybe there's some intent that they're going to harm you. And that's time to get out the firearm. But, thank you, Walter. I love you too, brother. I just got a nice compliment from one of my mentors, Walter. I was a police explorer, and he was a police officer, and he taught me, he was like my first professional mentor, and he really taught me a lot about police work, law enforcement, and really about life. So I appreciate everything that Walter has done for me over the years. He's a fantastic, fantastic guy. But back to the topic. You want to layer your defenses. And in your house, that means layering your defenses. Out and about on the street, that means walking away from the fight. Now, I'm a big, tough guy, right? Yeah, but I still cry at movies. So I would rather, and I may tell the story at one of my other evenings here, but the first thing I'm going to do is walk away from a fight or run away from a fight. Because the person who doesn't get hurt is the person who wins. Do you know who wins in a concealed carry incident? Do you think it's the person with the concealed carry permit? Do you think it's the offender? It's neither. It's the attorneys. The attorneys are the ones that win in all cases. And if there's an arrest, it's the police officers that win. Do you know why? They get overtime for going to court, whether you go or not. So, if you're in a self-defense incident, it's pretty much a losing. Up to end. I got 2 more minutes. Please, what questions can I answer for you? Anything. All right. While we're waiting for questions to be generated, I do have that advanced concealed carry class this Saturday from 8 to noon. Information is on my website. If you're interested in coming, I have space for you. You'll need to bring a firearm. I can actually give you a firearm if you need one. You'll need to purchase ammunition. You'll need to have a ton of other stuff that I can get into. I'd love to have you. All right. So, sorry, Michael. We are at the end of the hour. I will be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for another half hour. Tell your friends, share. This will be on my YouTube website, or my YouTube site. This will be on my website, which will link to the YouTube website, and I will publish it on Facebook. So, thank you all for attending. I love you all. If you have any questions and you didn't want to ask them here, please reach out to me. tacticaldaddy@gmail.com. I get questions all day long. I would love to answer them for you. This is my passion. Thank you. Have a good and safe evening. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.